This week on Business Brief, a look at how the World Cup is increasing interest in soccer clubs across the state. Then it digs into the latest cannabis sales data, which dipped in June despite a boost from World Cup events. Welcome to Business Brief, Missouri Business Alert's podcast focused on the business news and issues shaping the state. My name is Emma Harper, and I am joined by my co-host Trevor Grandin. Trevor, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty well. I will say I'm feeling just a little bittersweet about this being our last podcast episode of the summer.
I know, but it's my first time hosting, so I'm lingering in the sweet. But let's get into these headlines before the bitter hits.
General Motors plans to invest $157 million in its Wentzville Assembly Center to modernize and expand the facility's vehicle painting operations. The investment will fund the construction of a new 28,000 square foot building, the installation of advanced paint equipment, and upgrades to the plant's existing paint shop infrastructure. Company officials say the project will improve manufacturing efficiency, support future vehicle production, and reinforce GM's long-term commitment to its Missouri operations.
St. Louis Bread Co. is leaving its St. Louis roots and moving its headquarters to the Boston area. Though Panera will maintain a support center in St. Louis, the majority of its team members will be relocated to Weston, Massachusetts next July. Panera joins big-name companies like Future Fuel Corp and Olin Corp in the list of corporations who have left the St. Louis area in recent years. In 2023, Panera laid off 300 corporate workers, which is about 17% of its corporate workforce, as a Chicago-based research firm estimated that Panera's sales fell 5% in 2024. It's currently embarking on a marketing campaign to try to win back customers with new items and a value menu.
Ameren, Missouri proposed the construction of a new, large natural gas plant in West Alton. But this time, the company wants customers to pay for the plant as it's being built, not after it's finished. This method became legal in Missouri last year, and it's called construction work in progress. Ameren says that the approach could reduce some financing costs, but opponents say the funding strategy would take away Ameren's incentive to keep construction costs low. An official price for the Ameren plant has not been released, but costs to build similar plants are increasing because of the data center boom.
President Donald Trump's new worldwide tariffs are going to court as small businesses challenge the double-digit tariffs that will cover 99% of U.S. imports. With the tariffs, American importers will have to pay an extra 10% to 12.5% of a product's value on goods from nearly 60 countries. The tariffs come after the Office of the United States Trade Representative found forced labor conditions in all of the economies investigated. Critics say the tariffs are meant to replace a 10% worldwide tariff that recently expired, rather than to prevent forced labor imports. Experts say it may be harder to successfully challenge these tariffs than past ones.
The number of low-income Missourians enrolled in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program has dropped by nearly 50,000 from July 2025 to June 2026. This decrease comes a year after the passage of Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which extended tax cuts by making reductions to federal spending. As of October, able-bodied individuals are required to prove they spent 80 hours a month working, volunteering, or training to qualify for SNAP. Experts say the reduced number of participants is not due to reduced food insecurity, but policy changes and administrative requirements. In Missouri, failure to return mid-year review forms or annual recertification paperwork causes a majority of case closures. Missouri is not the only state experiencing drop-offs in food stamps enrollment, as SNAP participation has fallen by more than 4.5 million people nationwide since July 2025.
I don't know about you, Trevor, but I had a blast watching the World Cup this year.
Yes, I did too, especially because Kansas City was one of the host cities this year. Do you think that impacted soccer here in Missouri at all?
Well, that's actually what reporter Karina Grahovskaya wanted to find out. She spoke with local soccer clubs to learn just how the World Cup influenced the soccer scene here in Missouri. Here's that story.
Kansas City was one of 16 hosts for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, holding 6 matches at Arrowhead Stadium and being the base camp to 4 nations: Argentina, England, the Netherlands, and Algeria. More than 800,000 people attended World Cup matches and the FIFA Fan Fest in the city, according to KC 2026. Fox Sports found that Kansas City was the #1 market in the United States for viewership with a 4.89 share and a rating of 20. But the World Cup didn't just impact the city on an economic level. Local and professional soccer clubs could also feel the energy of the World Cup. The Kansas City Current, Missouri's National Women's Soccer League team, had the opportunity to host the Netherlands team, which used their training facilities as their base camp during the tournament. Denny Wilnack, the vice president of communication for the Kansas City Current, said that it was an honor to host the team and showcase what women's soccer has to offer.
It was an opportunity to show off really what women's sports is all about and show off these world-class facilities that are not only for our women's team, but also for one of the best men's teams in the entire world. And I think we also saw that represented in Kansas City as a whole.
Even on the opposite side of the state, those in St. Louis could feel the energy the World Cup brought. St. Louis City SC, St. Louis's Major League Soccer team, took advantage of the tournament by hosting watch parties, 5v5 soccer tournaments, and a 40-day free soccer event. Matt Seebeck, Chief Experience Officer of St. Louis City SC, said in an email, "This tournament did not create the soccer culture here in St. Louis or anywhere else in North America. It revealed a soccer culture that has been growing for decades." While it's still early to identify if the World Cup has impacted ticket sales, Seebeck says that the World Cup has brought a new energy to the game. In our inaugural season in 2023, there were so many new soccer fans looking to experience City SC for the first time. And now we have a similar opportunity to connect with new fans of the sport through the World Cup while continuing to engage with our fans who have been with us since the beginning. For Wilnack, the economic impact is less immediate and more of a long-term impact.
Being able to translate that fandom and that viewership into soccer fans who weren't traditionally soccer fans, I think makes a really big impact on our organization, but also will make a long-term impact in terms of having fans in the US and in Kansas City that are now soccer fans who weren't traditional soccer fans. I think the impact is less immediate and more so long-term in terms of fandom around soccer and around the Kansas City Current.
Even beyond the professional level, the tournament has left an impression on the youngest of soccer players in the Missouri area. Clubs like Cape County Soccer Club in Cape Girardeau, more than 340 miles away from Arrowhead Stadium, felt the energy the World Cup brought to the sport. Club director Carlos Salas says they are already seeing an increase in registrations.
We have seen a higher increase of kids signing up for our camps and our teams. Most of them, the first thing they said as soon as they got into our sessions is like, "Do you watch this game? Do you watch this player?"
For Salas, the tournament has already left a lasting impression on their players.
There's a lot of young players on these World Cup teams that had a very good season with their clubs and with their national teams. You see Jamal, you see oh my gosh, the new kid in Belgium, the new Egypt kid. I mean, they're 17 to 19 years old, and for these kids that are 10 to 15 years old, they see that as a possibility for them to keep growing and maybe once play for the national team.
While the tournament is over and won't be played again for another 4 years, it has brought more attention to soccer here in Missouri, according to Seebeck. Without a doubt, the tournament has brought more attention to the sport, both nationally and here in St. Louis. I do believe we'll see more young people inspired to pick up the game, so we have a very unique opportunity to continue growing the sport here at home.
Speaking of the World Cup, I know Kansas City officials predicted economic boosts in the area, though there have been mixed reviews about whether those expectations lived up to reality.
Yeah, I know that some restaurants and hotels didn't see the turnout they expected, but the airport definitely saw more travelers than usual. I haven't really heard much from other industries yet.
Well, reporter Sam Jackson found that there was a World Cup bump for recreational cannabis use too, although overall statewide sales decreased in June from the month before. She looked at trends in marijuana sales over time and spoke with the CEO of a Kansas City-based cannabis brand about the World Cup buzz. Here's that story.
Missouri's cannabis reached nearly $130 million in total sales during June, according to data from the Missouri Division of Cannabis Regulation. Recreational marijuana accounted for a majority of the sales, bringing in $119.7 million, while medical marijuana sales totaled nearly $10 million. Although June sales fell from May's record-setting $135.7 million, the month still marked the strongest June sales total since Missouri launched adult-use cannabis sales in 2023. Adult-use marijuana accounted for 92% of June sales, continuing the market shift toward recreational purchases. Meanwhile, medical marijuana sales dropped below $10 million for the first time since April 2021. Missouri has now generated $5.7 billion in total cannabis sales since the state legalized medical marijuana sales in 2020 and launched recreational sales in 2023. Michael Wilson, a co-founder and CEO of Franklin's, a Kansas City-based Black-owned cannabis brand, says large events like the 2026 FIFA World Cup create opportunities for cannabis companies to bring more visitors to the area and create new partnerships with businesses.
Things like this FIFA World Cup are always a boost, whether it's just from the traffic or it's from the collaborative partnerships that everybody put on. So, you could see all sorts of watch parties and deals and collaborative products, soccer themed. And I think really that capturing, this is what you see often with the cannabis industry, is the capturing of that moment and having the marketing that was relevant to the people. I think that was really one of the bigger drivers.
Kansas City welcomed over 400,000 fans to matches held at the GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium. It hosted many others at FIFA Fan Fest, at the National World War I Museum and Memorial, and other events across the region. Franklin's entered Missouri's cannabis market in 2022, and Wilson says the company's infused beverages saw increased demand during World Cup-related events.
Our beverages is a seasonal thing. People, that want a 25 milligram to 100 milligram beverage, that's kind of like more of an event-driven thing. So, people going to watch parties, people having things at their house, and, our beverage line definitely saw a boost during these months.
Wilson says the biggest opportunities came from businesses located near major event areas, where visitors were already spending time.
I think everybody in town has definitely benefited from the World Cup, but there are some pretty key locations. And if you look at someone like From the Earth, they have some of the most critical, awesome, perfectly located dispensaries in the city. And I think they've probably done the best.
Wilson says Missouri's role as a recreational cannabis state during a global sporting event created a unique opportunity.
This is also the first time that there's been a World Cup in a recreational market on a national scale. Several of these states had recreational cannabis, and I think that's pretty cool and unique that, Missouri, I think we're already surprised that Kansas City was a location for FIFA. And I think people would be surprised. And I always know they're surprised when I go to the East Coast and talk about the Midwest and Missouri, and just about how actually a lot of the people in Missouri are a lot alike the people on the East Coast. And, like Appalachia reaches over, and the cultures are very similar.
It is now time for us to get into our words of the week. Trevor, what's your word this week?
My word this week is groceries.
Oh, don't remind me. I've been putting off my grocery shopping.
And you're not alone. It looks like a lot of Americans are too, or at least changing their grocery shopping strategies. Food prices have soared in recent years, and buying food to eat at home has increased 33% in U.S. cities since the beginning of 2019. The COVID-19 pandemic, conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine, natural disasters, and tariffs have all contributed to the biggest price jump in 50 years.
How are people dealing with the increase in prices?
Well, it looks like people are developing their own strategies to navigate this persistent food price inflation. Some are using tactics like scouring apps to find what's on sale, or couponing and comparison shopping at different stores to find the best prices. Others are simply cutting back to non-essential goods or swapping expensive goods for cheaper substitutes. One of those goods is beef, which has risen 79% since the start of 2019.
Whoa, looks like I might need to step up my couponing game.
Well, that is all I've got this week. What is your word this week, Emma?
My word is carpenter.
Now, what are you building up to?
Not me, but the United Brotherhood of Carpenters built a new higher education pathway for their instructors. As one of the largest labor unions in America, the organization has 250 training centers across North America. The pathway will set these instructors up to earn both associate's and bachelor's degrees, and program leaders anticipate 500 instructors will benefit from the program each year.
That is really cool. But what does that have to do with Missouri?
Well, both of the schools that will be teaching these courses are actually in Missouri. The University of Central Missouri will be offering the bachelor's degree, and North Central Missouri College is hosting the associate's degree program. The courses are being taught in a hybrid format, though, so instructors will fly out from Missouri to Las Vegas for a few days at the start of the program, and then the rest of the course will be taught online.
Do you think this program could help with the skills gap we've been seeing in some trades?
I think that's what program leaders are hoping for. They think more skilled instructors will lead to higher retention of apprenticeship carpenters and eventually a more efficient workforce. The instructors participating in this program already have significant training and experience in the trades, but these degrees are designed to help them with the teaching aspect of their work. For our closing thought, here's Danny Welniak, Vice President of Communication for the Kansas City Current, speaking to lasting effects that she feels the World Cup has had on fans.
As Missourians fell in love with the star players on these teams, they became soccer fans and they fell in love with the game that maybe they enjoyed, but now they're passionate about. And so I think we're going to see a very long-term legacy in terms of people and fans and kids and even adults, around Missouri and Kansas that become real hardcore soccer fans.
Well, that is all for this week. The M33 Project provided the music for this episode. For my co-host Trevor Grandin and editor Kelly DeRook, I'm Emma Harper. This has been Business Brief. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.